Slate, I'm fully caffeinated. Let's do this. Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is the talk. We finally have a good chunk of news for us to sink our teeth into. Here are today's topics. We have a bunch of Legends releases that culminate in the release of Starkiller. We'll give quick thoughts on that. Dash Rendar, the first of those marquees coming into the game. We got the kit reveal, we've got the insights, broken those down. There's a number of things that stuck out to me that I want to highlight. Give my thoughts on Conquest 10 now that we're done. See where I'm at and how I feel about how this Conquest feels compared to the last Conquest. And then wrap up, as we always do, with the free-to-play gearing of my roster. I'm very happy with the addition of these Legends characters. I was very worried that after CG Carry left, that the addition of the non-TV, non-movie lore was going to be left out, because she's the one responsible for bringing KOTOR to the game. I'm hoping, now that we're getting Starkiller, now that we're getting Dash Rendar, and whoever else we might be seeing, that means some people who have left the game will feel motivated to come back. I don't think this is going to attract a lot of new players, but I do think it has a chance to bring back some old players who left. And for whatever reason, I really like the Sith, both in the game and in Star Wars in general. I'm looking forward to having a new one to go after, even though I've slow played getting Palpatine. Palpatine to me exists kind of outside of the Sith. Like, he's not a Darth, and I want a Darth. Can I say that? That feels weird to say. I don't know if that's an incorrect usage. The announcement was made formally in this post of the 50th anniversary. They released the puzzle in advance at the SWGOH events server on Discord, led the solving of that, extracted the announcement of the characters, but this is the formal announcement on the forums. So they have Dash Rendar from Shadows of the Empire. And then down here, I want to highlight this because there's language in here that sets off my alarm bells. And it's this language here of these units will not follow the traditional cadence for character releases. So what we are getting are 4 marquees over the next couple weeks that lead up to this legacy event on December 15th. We've never had a legacy event before. That is a new thing. And CG somewhat carefully uses that language. They mean certain things, so we have a new event that means a new thing. Now with this legacy event, that means Relic 5 to complete. That means only whales are going to be able to get this character. And what I wonder, with this language of these units will not follow traditional character releases, it could mean something like leading up to Galactic Legends before, like I think the Resistance heroes, they entered shipments sooner and they entered nodes faster than other characters. I don't think that's what's going on here. This might mean that these characters might not become free to play farmable for a while. They might not enter shipments in a month. They might not enter a node in 2 months. And because of that, that might expand the window of exclusivity for whales and spenders. And I think that might be something that they want. One of the things that's going on with Galactic Legends as this game matures is they become less hard to get. And that might be something CG is trying to protect against right now, to reward the people who spend on the game. Because like you take a player like me, I have almost the entire game geared up to gear 11. I think I have like just 20 or so of the bad characters left below gear 11. That actually includes a couple of the smugglers that are now going to get prioritized for me. But the point is, I can now go after any Galactic Legend that I want, and they're all equally as far as close for me. I have that flexibility built into my roster that I can go after Rey or SLKR or Kenobi or Sith Eternal Emperor. Lord Vader's a little further out, but I have staged my entire roster so that I can make those adjustments quickly because I've allowed myself to get the easy gearing done on everything. And that is a position that a lot of players are going to increasingly be in because they're not going to... Gear's getting easier to get because of the changes CG has made, which means more players are going to be able to get up to Gear 11 or to Gear 12. And that means getting Galactic Legends in general is going to be a lot easier, which means that exclusivity of Galactic Legends is going to be lessened. But this Legacy event, that's a different relationship that CG can have, and that might be an exclusivity that they're trying to build in. Typically we do the kit reveal first, but we're going to do the insights this time. With the insights, there's usually a nugget worth extracting. This time there's a number of things that I want to highlight. So the whole idea behind Dash is he is going to be giving viability to the prepared squad. I love this. I like any character that makes characters that are not used into usable characters. That means another Grand Arena team. That means more creativity, more flexibility. And because of how this kit is designed, it's not just a smuggler or prepared squad that can be used. There's some viability with other light side scoundrels and dark side scoundrels. And figuring out which team is going to be best with him, I think, is going to be very interesting because of the number of things in his kit that could be exploited. So there's the prepared portion of his kit that needs to be tested, and there's the turn meter portion of his kit that needs to be explored. The synergy suggestions highlight the original prepared smuggler squad, but that's never how these characters are intended to be used. The smuggler squad has the interaction of prepared built into their team, but some of the interesting characters are going to be Kira with her mass assist. It's going to be young Lando or young Han with their ability to give prepared to characters who are not part of that squad. Vandor is obvious because of his Zeta and how powerful that Zeta is. Now with the basics, CG makes explicit something that is hinted at within the kit reveal, which is how the specific wording of the abilities is going to feed into making Dash very fast, making him speedy, where there's abilities that do damage multiple times, and that is going to be hitting critical hits, which will be generating turn meter. But it's also highlighting how characters who are going to be doing damage multiple times are going to be very good with Dash. So Raid Han, Veteran Han, even Veteran Chewie with how they utilize crits, they're going to be useful to have. And there's going to be other scoundrels like BAM or IG-11 that could be interesting because of those kinds of mechanics. Now the unique attributes, this is mainly highlighting the Grand Arena ability, which is going to be awarding prepared at when characters lose prepared, which means any scoundrel is basically going to be able to be prepared all the time, if I'm understanding that correctly. Basically, it means prepared doesn't go away because you get prepared, you lose prepared, you get prepared, you lose prepared. So any scoundrel can now be put with Dash in a Grand Arena setting and become extremely powerful without having to rely on young Lando or young Han to put prepared onto those characters. Now the inspiration, usually I'd probably skip this portion, but Shadows of the Empire was a meaningful game to me growing up. My friend had it, I didn't have it, so I only played it at his house. I do remember this train level, and I was not good at it. I never beat it. I may have gotten to IG-88 a couple times, but I never beat IG-88. And I played other levels but that train level does really stick out for those of you who play it. I'm sure it stuck out for you guys too. Last portion is the strategy tips. There's a line here that's weird. So it's evident that losing and gaining prepared is part of the plan. That might just be a reference to something, or it might be a hint at larger things going on with his kit. I'm not going to explore it more until he's released in the game. They highlight the importance of modding him for speed, and then they they point out using Vandor Chewy, which I think everyone was going to try and use Vandor Chewy with him because of how powerful Vandor Chewy is, but they make what is implicit explicit there. Now for the kit reveal, what I usually like to do here is try to distill each of these abilities down to a few keywords so that we can extract what's going on. And with these basic ones, I usually like to make a visual representation of that where I just write out some of those keywords. I don't have time for that today, so we're going to just go through that exercise verbally. But first up, we have the basic Fearless Advance. This is physical damage 3 times. That's a key line. And then for each critical hit, random ally assists. But they do 75% less damage. And I think that is also important because what that's saying is damage is not the point. So if damage is not the point, what is? It's the critical hit on the assist. So what that's looking for is all that is tying into the unique generating that turn meter. So the basic is doing damage 3 times. So that means turn meter 3 times plus the assist from the ally, which means that turn meter is happening again. And that is similar to, but not exactly, like Dark Troopers. So Dark Troopers basic, this is a newer mechanic in some of the kits that we're seeing, is damage being done multiple times, which is why Dark Trooper gets through like B1 stacks very quickly, because Dark Trooper is doing damage for each stack. And in the case of Dash, he is doing damage 3 times. And this happens multiple times throughout this kit, and you have to ask yourself, why is it written that way? Especially on the second special. We'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. Now we have special 1, stop right there. Physical damage to target, dispel all buffs, and then stun them for 1 turn, and then additional damage for each buff dispelled. So that's going to be like Boba Fett's executes gets more powerful with each buff and debuff, and Vader's saber throw works the same way, where that gets a big damage boost based on how many debuffs are there. That one's fairly straightforward though, targeted attack with some control with that stun. Second special, 2 Seeker Missiles. This is the one called out in the developer insights. Again, physical damage 3 times, but this one's in AoE. So that means a ton of turn meter can potentially be generated. So you're probably going to want crit chance mods on Dash 2 in addition to those speed mods, or just a full set of crit chance mods that are really fast. Now, then this next portion here is a little weird. So first instance of damage dispels stealth and dazes for 2 turns. One is only dispelling a single buff in stealth. Interesting, a little weird. The daze is nice. Second instance is damage inflicts defense down. Fine. And then third instance of damage inflicts critical damage down for 2 turns. That's fine, but why isn't that going to be just a single ability? But it's damage 3 times. And then it says this attack can't be evaded or resisted. So again, there's no chance of missing one of those instances having an effect. So why is it being written like that other than the turn meter generation that we see? So the leader, this is an Omicron. Omicron's being the new way for CG to deal with Zeta is basically being devalued within the game. Now we have a new ability map. I don't really like the idea that these are going to be game mode specific, but we live with the reality that we have. So I'm just going to accept it and move on. Omicrons. I think at least for now for Omicrons, I'm going to be saving them for the Grand Arena specific ones. From there, if I've built up a good savings, then I'll start putting them in other locations, but Grand Arena first. Now, we already talked about this primarily in the developer insights, but what the leadership is going to do is give prepared to everyone. If you have the Omicron ability, it basically means characters are permanently prepared, and light side scoundrels or dark side scoundrels will become a lot more viable, and light side scoundrels will get a double bonus. So the unique hotshot Zeta, this is a good Zeta. Scoundrel allies gain max health, potency, and offense. Whenever prepared ally lands a critical hit, all allies gain 2% turn meter. All that stuff is great. And actually, this is one thing that I didn't plan on saying this, but this just occurred to me. One of the big things CG did was try to eliminate turn meter loops within the game. That's why they had the Finn Zeta nerf. That's why they rewrote HK47's leadership abilities. And now they have just added a character now who has the potential for turn meter loop. And maybe those abilities were they weren't even really broken. They were super powerful. They did threaten to break a raid, which that may have been the motivation, but CG was suggesting this was something that they didn't want to do in the future. Now we have something to look out for, our potential turn meter loops that we can create with Dash Rendar's specific viability. Before we move on, I want to highlight a couple characters. One is Beskar Armor Mando. Very interesting potential functionality here. One obviously is the Whistling Birds. With the Whistling Birds, each of those birds does damage individually, which means with Dash, that means a bunch of turn meter could be generated from those birds. Plus, with how Dash works, you might be able to have a fast Beskar Armor Mando, because usually you have a slower one so that he has a chance to build up to those 20 stacks and unleash quickly. But with how Dash is able to do damage multiple times, how he's calling assists, there might be a way to mod Beskar Armor faster so that he can do Whistling Birds more often, because Dash is going to be able to get way more stacks of those birds quickly. That is something I'm going to be keeping an eye out on. Raidhan and Shui, for obvious reasons, they both have high crit chance. They take a bunch of turns. Shui is going to be assisting whoever is guarded. They can be generating a bunch of turn meter. IG-88 is a little interesting for that AoE damage. He's going to be able to do a bunch of crits, land ability blocks, and because of the Shadow of the Empire ties, I wonder if there is some slight usage there. But more interesting is Canderous, because Canderous is another character who could potentially be generating a bunch of turn meter for Dash, because on his basic, he is going to be doing damage 3 times as well. So if he was called in to assist with Dash doing his basic, that means 3 hits from Dash, 3 hits from Canderous. That is a nice big boost off of just that basic ability. IG-11 I briefly mentioned earlier in the video, but IG-11 with the counters, he is going to be generating turn meter, plus he's just an annoying tank with some cleanses That could be interesting. Quill will also boost stats, so that is going to make that team potentially even stronger. And there's never been a great home for the Mandalorian characters. Like you can throw Cara Dune kind of with Mon Mothma, but there's better characters. The Bam Mandalorian squad never really worked, and Bam almost seems better with Mandalorian characters. Or I said Bam Mandalorian. No, I was right with what I'm saying. It's just confusing. You have the Mandalorian show characters versus the Mandalorian tag characters, and being unclear which direction of where you want to put those teams and characters. Ness potentially having a new home on this squad. Still, Ness has always been more of a plug and play character. And then Vandor and Mission and Zelbar. They might have, because of how they do assist with each other, that can potentially be generating turn meter as well, because with the Zetas, they're going to always assist with one another and generate some turn meter that way. They might become interesting on that team. And also, Stormtrooper Han, if he's taunting, can be generating turn meter for that squad. He's less interesting, but the turn meter there, he could become a little bit more tanky with the max health. And just looking at the smugglers in general, young Han, young Lando, they can help in non-Grand Arena situations, I think, because of giving prepared to other allies. Veteran Han, veteran Chewie, they're not going to be able to get prepared in the same ways as these other smugglers, but they have high crit chance. Kira with that mass assist is going to be great. L3 has that cleanse, the annoying taunt, could have some use there. But I'm most interested in exploring Beskar Mando, Canderous, those kinds of characters. Conquest Season 10 was better than Conquest Season 7 through 9. I want to highlight that because a lot of the online communities become these echo chambers of negativity where a lot of people were upset about Conquest Season 10. Conquest Season 10 is still a huge problem. It's nowhere near where I want Conquest to be, but it was better than 7 through 9. Like those global feats, yes, they are grindy, but you can work on them on day 1. You can work on them in Sector 1. That is much better than how Season 7 through 9 were, where you don't get to Sector 5 until maybe day 5 at the earliest. I was doing it day 7, and then you have to work all through those nodes. Find nodes where you can even accomplish the feat, which means maybe day 9 you're working on those feats in an uninterrupted fashion. Now, you could have worked on some of those feats throughout Conquest, but some of them you're not working on uninterrupted until day 9, which meant you're just racing towards the finish at that point. It was miserable, and life gets in the way. Life got in the way for this season of Conquest, and it was, to me, less grindy, where there was a day I missed entirely. I didn't make the progress I wanted to every day. I didn't refresh as much as I wanted every day, but I was still able to get the final crit. I did miss the Boba Fett shards on Sector 2, so that might mean I don't unlock Boba Fett until later, unless CG makes some sort of make good. Like, I hope they make the shards available on Sector 1 next season so people have an opportunity, because it did affect a number of people. A lot of us were in that just track of go for the data disk. I didn't even click on the node until later, where I was like, did I even get the Boba Fett shards? That kind of problem. That is frustrating and annoying. But with how the game mode was revised a little bit, it was less of a headache to me. The feats were a little bit more manageable. The grindiness was, for the most part, there's exceptions, but for the most part, was limited to the global feats, and the other feats I was able to work on usually by the time that I did my once through of a sector. Most of the other feats were accomplished. Consumables were something that I did not directly deal with in my methods video or too much in previous conquests, but I did use them because they were a reward this time around. One thing I wish was in my methods conquest video is that the consumables are not consumed until you win a battle. So you can use them to work on those kill feats and just purposely fail the node or let it time out, and those consumables will stay on the character and make it a lot easier to go after some of those feats. Like the Empire one or the Mandalorian one, I was just left those consumables on. It made it a lot easier to go after those feats. Overall, I still hope CG makes some improvements, but I did like it more than the previous seasons. I'm a little wary, though, that the next seasons could be tough because the data discs were, by design, very exploitable. It was a nice thing that CG did, but they could easily take that away. Last point is, in terms of characters being released through the game mode, the grindiness sucks, but what is nice is if you're willing to go through that grind, you can unlock these characters, and they're good characters, free to play. That is a big plus for players like me and any of those of you watching who play like I do, who are 100% free to play. Getting a good character of this quality to bring them into different game modes, Grand Arena or Territory War, that's huge. And we'll wrap up as we always do with the free-to-play gearing of my roster. This covers the past 2 weeks of Grand Arena, 2 individual periods of gearing. So this first portion here is just really boosting up a few characters. So Fennec, I had not put the Zeta on. I wanted to put the Zeta on her finally and to try her out. Then I wanted to finish up some Mandalorian characters, so we throw the Zetas on Maul as well. I hadn't put any of those on him during the first week of testing that I'd done with him, but I leave him at gear 11 this week because I want to get a feel of how effective he is at lower gear, and he's fairly effective even at gear 11. There's not a lot of reason to leave him there, but I did anyway. I just wanted to try him out. We take Cad Bane up. That's obviously for his ship. I have the Executor and time to bring him up to those levels. I take him up to gear 12 first. I think I have him at Relics now, or I'm not even sure where I have him right now. I glance at Chopper. I don't go through with this. I was low on gear at this point. I decide, though, to take Imperial Super Commando for the Gauntlet and to just be done with something, be done with the Mandalorian faction. He's a pain to gear, though. That's why he was the last one. I think, did I not finish him? I just only took him up a level. So I take Han up. Han's an easy character to gear. So he's at gear 11. And then that might be it for this period. Oh, Luminar is a super easy to gear character too, so I just like, whatever, I'll take her up. This is the gearing that took place on November 9th, before the last round of Grand Arena. So I finally got Omega done farming to 7 stars. She already had everything else done, but that farm is now, all my farms for any node characters are completed. Really, I think other than Galactic Legends. I take SRP up for his ship. I really want a relic, at least Biston, for that Ewing. Now I take up Maul to gear 12. Just more testing with him at different gear levels. I don't want to just take characters up to gear, or up to relics, because not everyone can do that. I don't think that's informative. On figuring out which characters work at lower levels. Canderous has been on my to-do list for relics for like a year. and I finally get around to taking him up. I want to boost up a bunch of squads for Grand Arena, so that's why Canderous was on that to-do list. And that might be all I did this week. I must have done one more thing. What did I do? Some of these characters were added because they're going to have Omicron abilities potentially in the future, and I think I call it. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. We're going to wrap it up there. I think I have another week until the end of my new account series where we're going to hit the 1 year point. I'm racing to the finish, going after both Malik and Beskar Mando. And I think I will have them both unlocked by the time we hit that 1 year point. Thank you for watching, everyone. Be safe out there. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.